All right, we are live. Tonight, we are here with Jay Vincent. He is the owner of BioFit Training. He is a specialist. I guess we'll call you a specialist at high intensity training. You are a Under Armour model and a MuscleTech. And MuscleTech is a supplement company and a MuscleTech athlete. Jay, how you doing tonight?
Great. How you guys doing?
Awesome, man. Glad to have you here. I'm going to introduce you guys to the panel. We got Mantidote. We call him Man. We got Gonzo. Chris Warren. We just call him Gonzo. So, Jay, first thing I want to talk to you about is high intensity training seems to be the thing that is your wheelhouse. Is that correct?
Right.
So, for people that don't know, tell us what high intensity training is.
High intensity training is actually redundant. It's exercise must be intense by nature in order to stimulate an adaptive response by the body. So it really is redundant, but what I specialize in is focusing on intensity of effort above all other things, because that is literally the driving factor of what stimulates your body to change. And a good example is, if you compare walking to jogging, we would all agree that jogging is probably a more effective form of exercise. And what is the difference between those two? The difference is the intensity of muscular effort and exertion. When you're jogging, you are making more intense contractions with your muscle fibers. You're recruiting more muscle fiber and stimulating more fiber, resulting in a stronger stimulus and a better response. So again, high intensity training is pretty redundant. It must be intense. But I guess the term came from Ellington Darden back in the 70s, I believe. He coined the term high intensity training. But, it's really a set of principles that we adhere to, those of us who instruct it and follow it. And the principles are extremely intense sets of exercise, using exercises which are congruent to muscle and joint function. Brief training, because if exercise is extremely intense, it is brief by nature. Think about it, that running example again, you could walk for hours, jog a little shorter, but if you were to do a sprint, it's not going to last very long. So the more intense the exercise is, the more brief it has to be by nature and infrequent, because we need to use a volume and frequency that the individual can recover from and adapt to. So the principles are intense, brief, and infrequent.
Okay. Now, when I hear the word high intensity training or the phrase, it means a whole lot of things to me. So let's say somebody's doing their typical workout and not getting gains or not seeing results. What do you attribute that to? In other words, what's the difference between your workout and your typical gym guy workout?
Well, the primary reason somebody might not be seeing results is their genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Some people respond to exercise very quickly and very extreme. These are what we like to call extreme responders to exercise. Most people are going to fall in the middle. It's going to be a bell curve. There's going to be people to the far right, which are going to be your extreme responders. These people generally gravitate towards things like bodybuilding, physique competitions, professional sports. These are genetic freaks. Most of us are going to fall in the middle, and then to the left side of the bell curve, you have your hard gainers or your morbidly obese, people with unfavorable genetics in terms of body composition and building muscle. So the primary reason somebody may not respond favorably is because of their genetics. Because if you look at like the Instagram models or the bodybuilders, they're all doing different things. And the reason is because they can do anything. They could throw a sack of potatoes at a brick wall, they're going to build muscle. It really doesn't matter what they do. That's why they're all doing different things. And that is why these are the worst people to take advice from. It's like taking advice from an African, asking them what the best skin tanning routine might be. He doesn't know why his skin is dark. It is genetically based. Same with the bodybuilders. They have no idea. A lot of the times the bodybuilders are muscular in spite of what they do, not because of what they do, because they are grossly overtraining. But with their genetics and the drug use, they can almost do whatever they want and still build muscle. So genetics is number one. Number two, they're not training with a high intensity of effort. A lot of the times, these workout programs are so long that without even realizing it, people will train with a lower intensity of effort in order to make it through the ridiculous amount of exercises and sets that their program tells them to do. So for chest, for instance, we're going to do an incline press, a flat press, a chest fly, a decline press, a dumbbell press, a dumbbell fly, 3 sets of 10. We're looking at 100 sets of exercise. In order to endure 100 sets of exercise, you have to do it with a low intensity of effort. And that is why a lot of the reasons people are almost doing endurance competitions in the gym, when long duration, low intensity muscular contractions is the exact opposite stimulus of what is required to build muscle. Intense, short duration muscular contractions and aggressive muscular fatigue is what tells your body that it needs to build thicker, stronger muscle tissue by building more myofibrils in the muscle fiber in order to produce more contractile force. But these long duration, what do they call them? They're like these 2-hour workouts are literally sending the opposite signals to the body. So those two reasons are very likely why people are not seeing the results they want. But mostly it's their genetics, because they see somebody in the magazine, and the fitness industry has conditioned us and almost lied to us to believe that we too can look like them as long as we get the right exercise program or the right diet or the right this or the right that. That's false. Just like I can't be as dark as an African, most people cannot be as jacked as the bodybuilder. And it all comes down to genetics.
Now, probably the average guy that hits the gym like me, when you were just saying about doing dumbbell press, flies, I'm guilty. I mean, for sure. I know that I would do probably six sets on chest day of chest, or actually 5 different exercises and 3 to 5 sets per exercise.
Yeah.
Just to I'm not sure if it's making myself feel better. So why does the average guy do that?
It's because it's a cognitive thinking error. It's, humans create patterns in order to save energy from figuring out problems on their own. So we look at the biggest guy in the gym or the most famous bodybuilder or whichever random NFL player, and we follow what they do because we think they got to where they got to because of what they do. And we take, or what they're doing for exercise, without taking into consideration any other factors. For instance, genetics, environment, diet, all these things, age. And that's the reason. So people, it's the blind leading the blind. It's passing on bad information down and down and down and down. It normally starts in high school when you start, working out in high school and your coaches put you on a weightlifting program. They have no fucking clue what they're talking about. Or college. And it's just the handing down of bad principles and lack of knowledge over generations. And again, so you take like your average, not even your average, your good strength and conditioning coach. He takes a lot of credit for the strength and speed of his team. Let's say Alabama, their strength and conditioning coach. Meanwhile, he's got a team full of genetic freaks. Mm-hmm. Most of his team is strong and fast, almost in spite of the awful workout program that he's got them on. But he takes the credit for it. So people are going to listen to what he says because he is the strength and conditioning coach of the NCAA champions. And it's that exact scenario that is happening in all different aspects of health and fitness, which is leading people down the wrong paths. It's almost like the appeal to authority fallacy. Just because the team does so well and the strength and conditioning coach is there, it must be what he's doing, but it's just simply not true.
Now, when you train somebody, say the average dude comes in and he's overweight, he's just not doesn't look healthy, is not eating right. Can you take that guy? Let's say, can you look at his pictures from 10 years ago to get an idea of what his genetics are like, or look at his mom and dad or his sisters or brothers?
Yeah, you can get a general idea. A lot of times when I have, an older woman or older man come in, I always ask them, what did you weigh when you were 22? And that'll give you a decent idea, because that's a decent idea, unless they were just ridiculously unhealthy their entire life. But again, if people have tremendous genetics, they're going to be in shape their entire lives. It would almost be hard for them to come to me at 55 years old looking like shit. So it's very rare and very unlikely that I would give a 50, 55-year-old or even a 45-year-old coming into me all out of shape, and he's going to turn into, this ripped, muscular, brolic physique. Because he would be there almost accidentally by that point. So no, the thing is, the fitness industry makes it seem like these drastic transformations are common. They're not. They're mostly fake. They mostly take someone who's in good shape and they have them get out of good shape, and then they just switch the pictures. So these transformations are bullshit. And at the same token, like, say you take 10,000 people who all submit their transformation pictures, or 10,000 people who try this program, you're going to have extreme responders, 5, 10, maybe 20, and they're going to use them as examples for how effective their program is, without paying attention to the 9,990 other people who didn't see good results. So that's the other thing too. Okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger has this program, and whatever football player has this other program. But what about the thousands of other people doing that same program without seeing those results? Nobody takes that into consideration. Just because someone appears to have achieved some result by using some particular method is not proof that they could not have achieved the same or better results using another method. That's one thing a lot of people have to understand.
I think people are afraid of change. Now, Jay, you had a video, I'm not sure if it was on Instagram, where you were doing basically a curl on a stationary bar, and you were pushing up as hard as you could. Now, growing up, to me, I don't know, again, I'm not a fitness expert like you, but even like when you're pushing your hands together, we used to call that, I think it's called isometrics. Is that correct?
It's isometrics.
So is that what you're doing when
or time static contraction?
Okay.
Yeah, so what you want to do, if you want to stimulate a muscle to adapt, and by adapt, I mean we're going to generate a deep amount of fatigue aggressively in that muscle. The fatigue is the stimulus. So what we're looking to do is create tension, a huge amount of tension. When you create tension, you recruit motor units. And when you recruit motor units over a duration, over a period of time, you generate fatigue. Fatigue is the stimulus which tells the muscle fiber to adapt. And by adapt, it will become thicker and stronger in order to better handle that tension, that fatigue, and that stress that we put on it if it were to come again in the future. So you can use anything to create tension in your muscles, recruit motor units, and generate fatigue. Isometrics are a great way to do it too. The only reason we really use any range of motion, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is throughout a muscle's range of motion, or its effective range of motion. Say, for instance, our biceps. Say we're talking about elbow flexion here. From straightened to all the way back, the muscle's ability to produce contractile force throughout this range changes. It's very weak when your arm is straight. It can create the most contractile force at about 90 degrees, and then it gets weaker again. This is because of how the actin and myosin filaments slide across each other deep within the muscle fiber and changes in leverage throughout the range. So the reason we're using range of motion is because we want the actin and myosin, when they slide over each other, we want to fatigue the muscle in a position where they overlap the most. So say, for instance, like you take two pieces of Velcro. When you stick them directly on top of each other, it's very hard to slide them apart, right? So when your elbow is fully straightened, it's akin to putting two pieces of Velcro on the very edge. That's why it can't produce very much strength or contractile force. In the middle, it's like putting Velcro on top of each other. So this is kind of like the actin and myosin reaching what's called optimal overlap. So we don't know where this happens. We know it happens somewhere in the middle, but we don't know where. So the reason we're using range of motion is to hopefully hit that part where we are achieving optimal actin and myosin overlap. So that way we generate the most fatigue and the greatest stimulus. That's why we're using range of motion. Also, we have something called specific responders and general responders. Most people, if they train in any range of motion, even if it's very short, will become stronger in the entire effective range of motion of a joint or a muscle. Some people, though, are specific. They're called specific adapters, and they will only get stronger in the range of motion which they train in. So another reason why we want to train with some range of motion or effective range of motion is because we don't really know if you're a general responder or a specific responder. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. But
it's not entirely necessary.
What was the word you used before when you were saying the Velcro is going together? What was that phrase?
Optimal actin and myosin overlap.
Okay.
So yeah, so like deep within your sarcomere, you have these filaments, actin and myosin, and they kind of drag across each other, kind of like with Velcro, how it kind of hooks. That's what they do. It's called cross bridging. So they kind of hook on each other and they pull each other along just like this, and they kind of pull each other along, kind of like a ladder. So when you're shortening your muscle, the filaments are pulling each other along and shortening. And when you lengthen the muscle, they're releasing and lengthening. So the overlap between the actin and myosin, when we reach a period where there's a lot of overlap, we're getting the greatest amount of stimulus. And that point happens in different parts of the range of motion or effective range of motion of muscle groups. And we don't know exactly where it is, because if we knew it was like, okay, if we could exactly put our elbow in 90 degrees of flexion using a machine or something and contract as hard as we can and optimal actin myosin overlap, then we wouldn't need range of motion probably, but we don't know. We don't have that technology. So that's why we're doing range of motion.
Okay, now we'll get back to the average gym guy that does a lot of repetitions. I see a lot of joint issues, a lot of wrist, elbow, knee injuries. Is that because of just doing too many repetitions or not doing the exercise properly?
It's got something to do with being under recovered or just not recovered at all. It mostly has to do with using too much force and too much momentum. So when you accelerate a mass rapidly, force equals mass times acceleration. So when you accelerate a mass, you're going to create more force. In the joints and the connective tissue are going to bear the brunt of this force. So lifting quickly or explosively is what is generating those injuries for the most part, because there is this erroneous myth that I don't even know how people even think it makes sense, but a lot of people believe you need to train fast to be fast. This is wrong. What creates explosiveness is strength. Think about if you could lift a 10-pound dumbbell 10 times, could not get the 11th, but you got stronger to the point where you could lift a 50-pound dumbbell 10 times, couldn't get the 11th. How much faster are you going to be able to accelerate that 10-pound dumbbell with that new strength? Much faster. But do you need to lift that 10-pound dumbbell quickly to generate that strength or build that strength? No. What you simply need to do is stimulate and stress the muscle, which can actually be done very slowly. Lifting and lowering the weight slowly creates consistent muscular tension or constant muscular tension, which is going to generate deeper muscle fatigue. But at the same time, when you're moving slowly, acceleration is reduced, force is reduced, and it becomes much, much safer. So you can become more explosive lifting very slowly or even not at all, even doing isometrics.
Okay. Now, we've all heard the phrase fast twitch muscles, and is it slow twitch muscles? What's the difference?
There's about 9 different ones, but we can categorize it simply into slow and fast twitch motor units. So it's got very little to do with the twitch speed of the muscle, but more so to do with the amount of contractile force the motor unit can generate. So a fast twitch motor unit can generate more contractile force. They are thicker motor units. They have more myofibrils, more sarcomeres in them. So think of like a string versus a rope. A fast twitch motor unit is going to be more like a rope. It's a thicker fiber, thicker motor unit. Slow twitch is going to be more like the string. Your slow twitch motor units are recruited for things of very low intensity of effort or things that require very low contractile force, like walking or doing dexterity things with your hands or just everyday life things. Your fast twitch motor units are going to be recruited by your body when you try to move very quickly, explosively, or try to lift something heavy. So your body recruits them in order. So basically what will happen is if I go try to lift a truck, in sequential order, my body is going to try to use the slow twitch and be like, oh, that's not enough. That's not enough. That's not enough. And then gradually work its way up, Henneman-Size principle of motor unit recruitment to the point where it's going to recruit the thickest, strongest motor unit to try to do the job. Now, we could do that a couple ways. We could do that by simply trying to lift something that we can't move as hard as we can, or we can carry a set to momentary muscle failure. So say you do a set of an exercise set of 10 repetitions, can't get the 11th. The first 1, 2, maybe 3 reps, your body's going to be recruiting slower twitch motor units. Those are going to fatigue out. Towards the 9th, 10th, and 11th rep, when those lower order motor units fatigued out, your body's going to be recruiting the higher order, the fast twitch motor units, during those last couple reps, which you cannot get or which you're contracting very hard. The key is those motor units, the fast twitch, are the most responsible for muscular growth, muscular strength, stimulating metabolism, and all the exercise benefits that we're interested in are in recruiting and fatiguing and stimulating the fast twitch motor units. That is why training to momentary muscle failure is very important when it comes to exercising. The problem is a lot of people avoid it because it's very uncomfortable and they associate it with injury. It's the intense burn and the discomfort that people associate with an injury, but as long as you're moving slowly, it is nearly impossible to get hurt lifting to muscle failure.
Now, Jay, real quick, you touched on higher rep range from 8 to 10. With that same process, break down, say if you're using 3 to 5. How does that work with fast twitch, slow twitch, and a lower rep range, say 5s, as opposed to?
Research shows that as long as you are carrying a set to momentary muscle failure, whether your time under load, okay, so think of it this way. We could do 10 reps that last about 10 seconds if we lift quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10. That is 10 seconds of time under load. Now, what if we took those same reps and we lifted 5 up, 5 down? 5 seconds raising the weight, 5 seconds lowering the weight. It's still 10 reps, but that's 100 seconds time under load. So what we want to be looking for is not repetitions. We want to be measuring our exercise volume by time under load, because 5 reps in a given exercise could be two completely different times under load between two individuals. So, but what the research shows is that whether you use a lower or a higher time under load, as long as you carry the set to muscle failure, the outcome is exactly the same. But most people are born with different distribution of fast twitch and slow twitch motor units. So people who gravitate towards endurance type sports like jogging or cross country or long distance track, they're generally born with mostly slow twitch motor units. These people are going to actually benefit from a little longer time under load. People who gravitate towards kind of those power sports or contact sports or sprinting or football or something like that, they'll actually benefit from a shorter time under load. But the research shows about 1.5 minutes of time under load is adequate for most people. So that is lifting and lowering the weight slowly, about 4 to 6 seconds on the positive and 4 to 6 seconds on the negative, for anywhere between 8 and 12 reps is going to be somewhere between 60 to 90 seconds of time under load. And that's going to be fine for most people.
So increasing the weight and lowering your reps is just basically just a faster way to get to it, basically.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, to a certain extent. So if you're doing 5 reps and your set only lasts 10 seconds, that's not very much time under load. You're going to have a relatively low, although you're going to generate a lot of tension, you're going to have very low time under load. So you're not going to have much of a metabolic effect in that muscle fiber. So, but other than that, it really does come down to preference. If you like using a lighter weight to muscle failure or a heavier weight to muscle failure, the research shows the outcome's the same. It's mostly preference. I prefer my sets to be about 45 to 60 seconds, but because I do everything perfectly, but a lot of my clients, I'll have mostly 90 seconds to even 120 seconds for each exercise set. So if we look at it this way too, so your typical gym bro lifts and lower the weights, 3 sets, 10 repetitions, right? Each set lasted about 10 seconds. Throughout 30 repetitions, he's done 30 seconds of time under load. Okay. My client or my workout or my set lasts 90 seconds. So in one set, I'm doing 3 times the amount of exercise volume that the typical gym bro is doing. So when you look at a high intensity training workout and you think it's low volume, it's actually either the same, if not more volume, because we are condensing it into one set and doing slower repetitions than the typical workout. Most cases, it's actually more volume. It's just done in a condensed fashion and it's more efficient.
Gonzo, I'm going to go to you. You got any questions for Jay? I'm sure you do because you're on your fitness journey right now.
I am. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of getting into a place where I'm trying to, just get started with the actual resistance training because I've been doing just a lot of walking. Walking was my thing when I got started, and I've just kind of stuck with that for the longest time. But I really, I want to actually get the muscle mass back on there.
Well, yeah, that's going to be crucial for metabolic efficiency. Because when you lose weight, if you simply diet, your body is going to break down. When you put your body in a catabolic state, it's going to break all of your tissues down to make up its energy demand. It's going to break down fat, muscle, bone, neural tissue, connective tissue, everything. The purpose of exercise in a weight loss program is not to burn fat or burn calories, because exercise burns barely either. Exercise burns so little calories and so little fat, it's not even worth talking about. The purpose of exercise is to build or maintain lean muscle tissue as the fat is lost. So think about it this way. Your body works off of hormonal signaling for the most part. Your body's simply trying to survive. So you put your body in a food scarce environment, aka a calorie deficit, in which case it has to mobilize its fat tissue to survive. It's also going to mobilize that muscle tissue, because guess what? That muscle tissue costs calories. More muscle tissue, unless you absolutely need it, is going to make it harder for you, the human organism, to survive in a food scarce environment. So how do we keep the muscle tissue? By placing an extremely heavy demand on the muscle tissue through resistance training. Now, through that demand on the muscle tissue, it is going to signal to the body that something in this environment is placing a huge demand on our muscle. We need to keep it or we're going to die. So what you're going to do is create an environment of what's called discriminant weight loss. Preserving muscle tissue and having your body mobilize almost entirely fat tissue based on the demands that we're putting on your body through the resistance training and the calorie restricted diet.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's get into diet, because my diet, I don't even like calling it diet. I do very low carb, very low. Not much pasta, rice. I don't starve myself by any means, but I do stay away from certain carbs. Just I want to call them bad carbs, whether it be donuts, potato chips, basically junk food. I stay away from that. I do find myself craving carbs sometimes, like mashed potatoes or rice, something like that. But mostly my diet is probably 80% meat, with high fat. Vegetables are mushrooms, onions, olive, avocado, asparagus. So how important is diet to building muscle? In other words, those carbs that everybody has to pile on, what do you suggest is a good carb and a bad carb?
Well, the way I tell people to eat what you would find in the woods. That's what I like to say. Like, you're not going to find bread in the woods. You're not going to find cereal in the woods. You will find, if you were to live in the woods, which is where our human genotype evolved, you would find mostly, since we're omnivores, you would find mostly animal protein, some vegetables here and there, some fruits here and there, but really no starchy carbs. So the best way to eat is probably closer to the way you described it. When it comes to fat loss, it doesn't really matter what you're eating as long as you are in a calorie restricted diet or a negative energy balance. But it would behoove you to choose foods that are more nutrient dense and calorie deficient, as opposed to calorie dense and nutrient deficient. An example of calorie dense and nutrient deficient is a donut. An example of nutrient dense, calorie deficient is chicken breast. Now, when you're eating nutrient dense, calorie deficient foods, you're going to feel more satiated because your body is going to get what it needs. You're going to find it easier to diet and easier to stay with that calorie restricted diet. So simply eating what's in the woods is the best approach, whether it's high carb, low carb, whatever. Some people, people respond to carbs differently. Personally, I could drink beer and eat pizza every single night. I'm going to be around 10% body fat. I don't have a problem. Most people, are probably going to want to stay on the lower carb side. But when it comes to building muscle, hitting adequate protein intake is the most important part. And that's going to be about 1 gram of protein per pound of target body weight if you're overweight. But if you're lean, about 0.8 to a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So if you're 200 pounds and 20% body fat, 160 grams of protein is probably going to be in the ballpark of what you want to hit. And that's going to be the most important for building muscle.
So would you say if you're 200 pounds overweight and you want to get to 175, so what you're saying is, in other words, hit that 175 grams of protein? That's
right. Yep.
Okay, got you.
Yep. Calorie restriction, your number one priority, hit the protein requirement, because the protein also has an anti-catabolic effect when it comes to muscle. It's going to help you build muscle. It's going to help satiate you. So say it's, we'll say for easy numbers, 200 grams of protein times 4 calories per gram. You're looking at 800 calories through protein, anywhere between 650 and 800 calories through protein. And then the rest of your calories in your calorie restricted diet can come from pretty much whatever you want, research shows. But, if you're pretty carb sensitive, if you're morbidly obese, probably going to want to stay a little lower on the carb side.
Okay.
Hey Jay, real quick, touch on the mainstream diet information of 6 to 8 meals a day. I just want to know your take on that, because I have my opinions too, but I want to hear your take.
Well, I mean, so we're an omnivore, right? We evolved over the course of like a million years. What omnivore in nature eats 6 to 8 meals a day? None. We're not cows. You know what I mean?
Or your body's ability to only absorb 30 grams of protein at a time, at a sitting.
That's
right.
Bullshit.
Would you believe for about 8 years, from about 19 to probably, I say 6 years, from about 19 to 26, I believed that shit. And I wore myself rugged trying to eat every 4 hours, missing events, missing, doing things, because I was afraid that if I didn't eat every 4 hours, I was going to lose muscle mass.
Yep. Yeah.
My training would be a waste. And so it basically mind screwed me,
Well, yeah, that's the supplement industry trying to get you to buy their shakes. If they're saying you need to eat every 4 or 6 to 8 meals a day, that's more supplement shakes that they're going to sell you. So that's what you got to be careful of the bodybuilding magazines and the fitness magazines, because they'll say all kinds of shit, but they want your money.
Yeah, and I say that because I know either somebody watching right now or who's going to watch this video later believes that, and I believed it for about 6-7 years, and it was a terrible period of my life when it came to my fitness journey.
Yeah, because you really didn't see any noticeable difference. I mean,
and
if the human body needed to eat every 6 to 8 meals a day in order to build muscle tissue, we'd have been dead 2 million years ago.
Yeah.
Come on. It's crazy. Also, research has shown that in rat models, rats would build, if the muscle was properly stimulated, rats would build muscle in their gastrocnemius or their soleus, I forget which muscle, in starvation conditions. So if the muscle is properly stimulated, it will grow under any diet condition. It's going to be a better idea to have adequate protein intake every day, so you have the protein there when your body decides to use it. So here's another thing people need to understand. Protein does not stimulate muscle growth. Training does. With that said, the more protein you eat does not mean the more muscle you grow. Protein is not driving muscle growth. The training is. You just need to make sure you have the protein coming in, adequate amounts, for when your body decides to grow. It could be a lot of the time you're not going to grow muscle or strength every single workout. In the beginning, yes, but most of those it's improvements in skill in most cases. But most of the time when you're building muscle and strength, it's nothing, 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 bump, nothing, 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 bump. It's not linear. So your job is to make sure you have that protein in there for when your body decides to make that bump. So hitting adequate protein there. But what the bodybuilding magazines and fitness industry recommend is just there are no words for how stupid it is.
Yeah.
Real quick, I've got, for some reason I'm not seeing are you guys seeing the comments in the StreamYard chat or no?
I'm not.
No, I've got a comment here. It's just Tony513 said, "Hey there, fellas. We got 30 days, says, not into high intensity training. I just need to lose some weight first." What do you got to say about that?
You need to adjust your calorie intake. I mean, losing weight's easy.
Mm-hmm.
The principles are easy. The application is what people have trouble with. All it takes is a little bit of discipline and commitment. Like, little bit. You got to think about it this way. I think it's like a third of the world population is starving, and we're having a hard time not stuffing our face. Come on. Watch your calories. Write down what you're eating. It's not hard. You're just being a bitch, really. Usually,
1,000 calories of pizza is the same as 1,000 calories of chicken breast. You're still getting the same calories. Yeah, the nutrients are different, right? Sure, but the calories, like basically, a lot of people, what the question was is like they overcomplicate, like you were saying, losing weight. It's just a matter of
complicated. Track your calories. If you're overweight,
that was another thing that drove me in that time period was the getting shredded, and it was the calorie restriction. The whole point of the calorie restriction is what I was missing out on. It was so simple.
Just the calories. I mean, so for most men, if they're overweight, start with 2,000 calories. Measure, weigh your food. Try to hit 2,000 calories a day. If you're losing weight, stick with it. If you start to plateau and stop losing weight, reduce the deficit even more so, or increase the deficit. If you start with 2,000 and you're not losing weight, drop more calories. It's an N=1 science experiment. Just adjust your calorie intake until the scale starts to go down. It's friggin' simple. And the point of exercise is to maintain and build muscle tissue as fat is lost. Because if you simply lose weight without stimulating your muscle tissue, you're going to you're going to get weaker bones. Not only weaker muscles if you don't stimulate them. Your muscles will get weaker, your bones will get weaker, your connective tissue will get weaker. It will all get weaker over time if you're not stimulating your muscle tissue, because the muscle is the window to all those other tissues. So the purpose of exercise, again, is to not burn fat, because exercise doesn't burn fat. What exercise can do is mobilize enough energy to create an environment of a negative energy balance. But for most people, in order to lose a pound of fat a week, you'd have to run or jog about 35 miles a week and keep your eating habits exactly the same. Who's going to do that? If you're jogging 35 miles a week, you're going to eat like a fucking horse. Okay? So that's why exercise for the sake of losing fat doesn't work, because first of all, 35 miles a week is going to take a shitload of your time, pointless use of time, and it's going to stimulate appetite, and you're going to end up out eating that deficit. Not only are you not going to eat in a deficit, you're going to eat in a surplus because you've stimulated your activity so much. So again, the purpose of exercise: build and maintain muscle tissue as fat is lost through a calorie restricted diet and a negative energy balance. Very simple.
Yeah, and not to mention the cortisol spike and the running.
Yeah, and the cortisol is going to ruin your life too. So yeah.
Let's talk about like I think the word is I don't know if that's the right word, but a typical workout. A typical workout for an average guy that you're training. Now, we talked about genetics. A lot of things are genetics. But what's a typical high-intensity workout that you would prescribe to an average guy?
So what you want to do is you want to effectively stimulate all the major muscle groups in your body. So it's going to be all the anterior muscle, the posterior muscle, hips and thighs, calves, forearms, things like that. Very basic multi-joint movements are going to be the most efficient way of doing this. So think about our anterior muscle groups. We've got our pecs, our front delts, our biceps, forearms, abdominals. You know, we could work each individual muscle group on its own, but that's going to take us several exercises. Or if we do something like a chest press, we are effectively recruiting and stimulating several anterior muscle groups. So what I tell people to do is just very basic movements. You want basic, easy to perform movements, because with every exercise, there is a skill component. Like a hang clean is an exercise that will recruit, fatigue a lot of muscle, but it requires a lot of skill. So if the purpose of exercise is to aggressively recruit and fatigue muscle, then adding an exercise which requires a lot of skill is going to take away from that, because we're going to be focusing on the skill. So you want exercises that do not require a lot of skill. That's why I prefer machines, more specifically Nautilus or MedX machines, because we can focus on fatiguing the muscle rather than on how well we're performing the skill of the exercise. So to hit all the major muscle groups, pretty simple. A good place to start would be a horizontal push, like a chest press, a dumbbell press, a bench press, whatever. A horizontal pull, row, anything like that. A vertical push, like an overhead press. A vertical pull, like a pull down or a chin up. And a squat or a leg press. That's a good starting point. And then something for the abdominals. So you want to start with that because that's going to hit all your major muscle groups. And then you can add other exercises, other simple movements to that, like a biceps curl, a triceps extension, heel raise, forearm flexion extension, whatever, lumbar extension, something like that. But first, you want to start with your horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical push, vertical pull, squat, and then add in the other simple movements on top of that, as long as it doesn't interfere with your individual ability to recover and adapt. So say you do these 5 exercises to muscle failure and you're fucking wiped, probably shouldn't be adding in the triceps extension, the biceps curl, and the heel raise. In that case, you might want to do a bit of a split routine. So, that's the only way it starts to get complicated, is trying to figure out your individual exercise tolerance. But basically, very basic exercises, multi-joint exercises, low skill, done with a super high intensity of effort to muscle failure.
Okay, so the kind of the workout you just described, but that's also in this high intensity mode, like we talked about earlier. Slower reps. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of weight. It can be weight that
be whatever the hell you want, really.
Yeah, like we talked about it earlier, where I have 50-pound dumbbells in my home gym, and I can normally pump off 15, 20 of those like it's nothing. And so after I had met you, I decided I'm going to slow it right down. And when we were talking earlier, I was having a hard time pushing out 8.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that high intensity training is what's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
Me, I've been really rearranging my workout now into more the high intensity style. Like I said, I've watched your videos, I've talked with you, and as we talked earlier, I'm noticing muscle soreness, and it's that good soreness that I haven't really had before. The only time I would get that is if I haven't worked out in like a week or 2 weeks, and then you get that good feeling. But I noticed as soon as I switched to the high intensity style workout, I'm getting that good feeling a lot quicker and more frequent now. So
yeah, and that's because your body has adapted to your old workout.
Mm-hmm.
Your old workout was no longer a workout. It was just something that your body does. So the purpose of exercise is to put a stress on your body that it is not used to and that it cannot handle. So that way it produces the adaptation so it can handle it in the future. So if you're not feeling anything from your workout, it's no longer a workout. Like all these boot camps or Orange Theory bullshit, they're not workouts. That's recreation. There's a difference between recreation and exercise. Recreation we do for fun. Exercise we do to promote health. Okay? Exercise generally isn't very fun. When you try to combine the two, when you try to make exercise fun, you're going to take away from the effectiveness of exercise. Because if you're doing exercise properly, it's not fun. But it's something that is required in order to maintain a healthy body. But you keep in mind the soreness too, though. Soreness is an indication that you have put your muscles under stress, but it is not necessarily an indication of a good workout. Because if you do a different exercise or a different machine, you're going to generate soreness simply because your body's not used to it. So say I use a Nautilus chest press machine for 3 months, and then I go over to a Cybex or a hammer strength. I'm going to be sore the next day simply because it's a different machine and our body adapts specifically to the machines we use. So that's why people have come up with this stupid bullshit called muscle confusion, because they notice, first of all, muscles don't have brains. They don't get confused. What people have noticed is that when they do a different exercise they haven't done in a while, they get sore. And they're sore because their body is simply not used to that exercise. And people have erroneously used soreness as an indication that it is an effective workout. But if I hit you in the leg with a hammer right now, you're going to be sore. But are we going to call that an effective workout? No, we're going to say we stress the muscle, but it doesn't necessarily mean we stimulated adaptations in muscular strength and growth.
Now, for me, it's the same exercises, just a lot slower and a lot more intense.
Yeah. Yeah, because you are recruiting and fatiguing more muscle fiber than you previously were.
Okay.
It's a new stress.
Yeah. Gonzo, anything?
I'm wondering, like, where would you, like, how would you structure like a meal plan? Like, how would you structure your sleep and your meal and then your workout throughout the week or throughout the day?
Oh, I mean, you want to think about it this way. Well, your workout, you want to structure your workout around your life. You do not want to structure your life around your workout, which is what a lot of people do. People will cancel plans people will cancel far more important things to get their workout done, when it should be the other way around, because the workout is merely a stimulus. And if you miss this stimulus once in a while, your body isn't going to degrade down to a fat pile of slob in a couple of days. So it is okay to miss a workout. If you do miss a workout, you're just going to end up being more recovered. It's really no big deal. So you want to structure your workout around your life, not your life around your workout. When it comes to diet plan is simple. Again, hit your adequate protein requirement, which is going to be 1 gram protein per pound of lean body mass or target body weight. Be in a calorie deficit, and then make up the rest of your calories outside of your protein intake through carbs, fat, however you'd like. Just stick with foods that occur naturally in the environment, things you would find in the woods. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You're going to look at, a lot of times, chicken, fish, beef, pork, bugs, I don't give a shit, whatever, plus vegetables and a little bit of carbs here and there, but stay away from the highly refined stuff like pasta and whatever garbage everybody eats, bread, stuff like that. Pretty simple. Just hit the protein, stay in the calorie deficit. And a lot of people find it easier to just, do a fasting thing, like hit lunch and hit dinner and kind of skip the whole breakfast thing. I found a lot of people have success with that. That's a good approach for many people. But yeah, it really doesn't matter how you do it. Meal frequency is irrelevant completely. So meal frequency, don't worry about. Just hit the calorie requirement.
I'd like to add something real quick. Yeah, if you want a 3,000 calorie diet, meal timing, I think that's kind of what you're asking for, like how to schedule meal timing for the best efficiency. Maybe Gonzo went away. Yeah, if you and Jay can add his thoughts on this too. If you eat 1,500 calories at 12 and you eat 1,500 calories at 6 p.m., still getting 3,000 calories whether you separated those meals out throughout the day.
Yeah, doesn't matter how you do it.
It's more about the macros, the number of your calories, the number of your proteins, carbs, and fats that you want to get, not so much the meals. And I say this because I was hung up on that for far too long. And I was just fed. And I'm grateful for the guys that introduced me to weightlifting and nutrition, but I was just fed too much mainstream bullshit. And it was far too long. And I wish somebody would have told me at 22 when I was only like 3 years into it, these misconceptions. And man, I just ate them like just ate all the lies that you could eat for 7 years.
Yeah, I got lucky to learn this at 24. So the last 6 years of my life were spent growing my business, which I had plenty of time to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with you could eat your daily calorie requirement one meal if you want.
Yeah.
Or you can break it up into 6. It's up to you. It's going to be a lot more efficient to do maybe 2 meals and a snack. But again, at the end of the day, there's no noticeable difference at the end of a training career when it comes to meal frequency. None.
Mm-hmm. More about the numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to one more thing, and that's going to be something that seems to be plaguing the United States, and it seems to me that I read about it, and I want your input on this, is your testosterone levels and how important that is. And, you know, should the average guy get them checked? I get my T levels checked every 6 months. I get my blood work every 6 months just because I want to know what's going on. So let's talk about testosterone levels, and let's talk about testosterone. Now, a lot of guys, and I mean a lot of guys, are doing the juice. I mean, there's no way around. I mean, you know that. There's a million guys that say they aren't doing it, and we know they're doing it. What is the difference? And how do I put this? What's the difference? Well, I think I know the difference, but what's the difference between the guy that goes to his real doctor, his endocrinologist, gets his T levels checked, the doctor says, yeah, you have low T, so we're going to put you on some testosterone replacement therapy. What's the difference between that guy and a guy who goes to a TRT clinic? Now, a TRT clinic to me is like a pain clinic or a pain management clinic. You're going there to get pain medication to a pain, and they're going to give you that. That's what they're there for. A TRT clinic, you know, they've popped up everywhere. You can order it through, what is it, 4Hims, and you know, you talk to a doctor on the phone, they're going to give you testosterone. Let's talk about the dangers of that.
I didn't even know what a TRT clinic was. I thought you always went to your endocrinologist.
No, well, welcome to Florida.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I mean,
you can go. A lot of these things, like you see, like I think it's called 4Him, and these other places online, you do basically I don't even know if it's a video conference, but you talk with a doctor, and they send you the juice. I mean, it's that simple.
Like however much you want.
I really don't know. I have no idea. You know, that seems to be a trend right now.
Well, I would imagine most men have lower testosterone than we're supposed to, and you know, there are conspiracies that it's the food that we're, you know, exposed to. But listen, we do have choices. It's mostly men are overweight, they don't exercise, they eat like shit, and they're stressed out. I mean, that's gonna drive your testosterone down. You could start with fixing those things, but I'm not against TRT. I mean, testosterone is super important. So if you're super low, bringing it up to normal levels is going to drastically improve your life. I think anybody who is low should do that if they, you know, I mean, obviously fix the part of your life which is driving it down to begin with. But yeah, I think men in our society need more testosterone for sure. I mean, the difference between, you know, going to an endocrinologist or even, I guess, a TRT clinic compared to what, you know, the Instagram models are doing is they're taking about 10 times what TRT would do. And, you know, I don't know if it's dangerous per se. The danger lies in what it does to your body when they get off of it, which is you're going to have this like huge swing in hormones, and it's going to fuck you up. So I don't think they know that. And then they end up being on TRT the rest of their life anyway. But I think TRT is healthy. I think it's probably been frowned upon in our society who doesn't like masculine men. So it kind of makes sense that they're shunning TRT. So I say if you have low testosterone and you get TRT, fucking go for it. You're probably going to feel a hell of a lot better. It's going to make a huge difference in building muscle? Probably not.
I'm talking about guys who don't have low T, and do you know what I mean? I mean, what is considered low T? Now, I go to an endocrinologist, just so you know. And so I go to an actual real doctor. And I don't like saying that a lot of these TRT clinics or a guy you might talk on the telephone through a website is not a real doctor. So do you think that's right? Because when I talk to my doctor, the damage that he says that somebody who doesn't need the testosterone replacement therapy is unbelievable. he gave me a whole list of things that it can do to your insides. If somebody has low testosterone, yeah, of course. Now, he also told me that when you do testosterone and you don't need it, it's super damaging to the body. You actually have to wean yourself off it. I mean, I know people, I have friends who've been on it and are on it, and I've seen their ups and downs, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I look at it as a bad thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really too familiar with like what, the damage that it does, but I do know that if you're not going to an endocrinologist, you're probably taking far too much. I mean, a lot higher doses than you would just to, supplement your testosterone. So I think like an unhealthy level would be like 4 or 5, 300 nanograms per deciliter, I believe. And healthy is like 800 to 1200. I think those are those numbers. Do they sound right? So yeah, I mean, your typical bodybuilders, 2 to 3,000, nanograms per deciliter. And, over time, I'm sure that's going to wear some shit out, not to mention the androgenic side effects of that. So, I mean, it would make more sense to try to, bring your test up. But here's the thing. When it comes to testosterone and building muscle, though, the research that I've read shows it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. There's genetic factors, but testosterone was thought to have been. But, they showed a graph of people of all different testosterone levels and their response to exercise. There are people who responded extremely well to exercise with low testosterone levels and people who responded poorly to exercise with high testosterone levels. So it seems that it doesn't make as much of a difference as you once believed. So if you take the pro bodybuilder and he takes testosterone and he gets all jacked up, got to remember, he's also got those genetic predispositions that's helping him. But if you take average Joe or, the string bean, nerdy dude, and he takes a ton of testosterone, he's not gonna look like, an exercise Chad out of nowhere. So, I mean, testosterone's healthy, but a lot of people look at it as this like muscle building magic pill. But they're gonna be disappointed if they get it for that reason.
Okay. Yeah, because again, I've talked to my endocrinologist, and again, I see him every 6 months, and I'm like, over the past couple of years, I'm like, hey, doc, am I ready yet? He's like, absolutely not. In fact, the last 6 months, he said my free testosterone was absolutely beautiful, and my total testosterone went up I think my total went up about 60 points in 6 months.
Well, you're eating well and you're healthy.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I have a friend who's 25, and he had to get on it because he had none. In the military, probably stressed out. So, a 25-year-old, masculine guy, military guy, no testosterone. That's pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have kids. We shouldn't have people that age with low testosterone. They should be starting to look at it probably 40, 45, 50 maybe. But I would probably recommend, everybody get it checked, because if your testosterone is low, you're going to be underperforming. You're going to feel like shit. You got to get that fixed.
Yeah, you gotta know the signs too of low testosterone as well.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be lethargic, low sex drive, tired, depressed.
Mental disorders, anxiety, depression, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
I've had a lot of male anxiety and depression disorders could probably be treated with. I mean, obviously these lazy bastards aren't going to change their diet and life habits, but a lot of it could probably be treated with testosterone replacement therapy. It's probably low T that's driving a lot of this.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we could make the argument probably that, you'd want, like, ideally, you'd want to be in a place where you'd be making your own testosterone and you'd have enough of it.
Right.
But obviously, like, the causes are multiple and unclear, where that pathology starts. So I don't know, maybe like the first thing I think of is like maybe like a low fat diet could cause that. That could be
Well,
a problem.
A high carb diet could result in lower testosterone because insulin is a hormone that interferes with how effectively the other hormones interact and work in our body. A lot of the fat loss hormones like lipoprotein lipase, hormone sensitive lipase, they literally get blocked by insulin, and chronically elevated levels of insulin over time will lower testosterone levels. That's part of it too. So yeah, lowering your insulin levels by reducing your refined carb intake will definitely help too. But again, for a lot of people, they're not willing to make that little change.
I think personally, real quick, I just want to add this: cortisol stress to me is the number one in my opinion. This is just my opinion. The number one factor in messing up a man's hormones is cortisol stress.
Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, men got a lot on their shoulders now. I mean,
yeah,
we're getting our asses kicked.
So, and we don't sleep. Americans don't sleep anymore.
No. Yeah, sleep is huge too. You know, it's funny because Americans place such little importance on sleep, but sleep is probably one of, if not the most important thing you can do for health and longevity. I mean, you know, my ass is in bed. This is late for me. My ass is in bed at 9:30 usually. Early to bed, early to rise for me. And I'm getting at least 8 hours a night. And I think a lot of people, if they're feeling like shit, even if they're overweight, under-muscled, whatever, depressed, try to make that little change. Try adding an hour or two of sleep. Because, you know, all of that hormonal augmentation and all that repair, that genetic repair happens when you're sleeping. And if you're not letting your body do that, and if you're exercising, if you're training and you're putting your body under the stress and you're not sleeping, your muscle growth process mostly takes place when you're in the deepest levels of sleep, and your fat mobilization mostly takes place in your deepest levels of sleep. So if you're not sleeping, you can throw those two out the window. They're not going to happen.
I think a lot of people might have been like I was at one point, is almost feeling guilty because you want those 8-9 hours sleep, like you're missing something.
You're lazy too, right? You sleep.
Yeah, that's lazy. True. And I know after 8 hours sleep, I feel incredible. And that's something I've changed. I'm going to say in the past 2 years is my sleeping habit. Versus
much more productive, right? Like you have a much more productive day too.
Yeah.
Okay, you could spend an extra 2-3 hours at night doing bullshit, pretending you're productive, or you can get those hours of sleep and crush it the next day. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm up like at the crack of dawn, but I'm also in bed super early. And I find that ever since I did that, 5-6 years ago, that's life changing. We need to get it out of our mind, about feeling guilty or feeling lazy about getting more sleep. It's crucially important.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Gonzo or Man, do you have any more questions for Jay?
No, unless Jay has some questions for us or Gonzo has a question.
I know I threw a lot at you guys. There was a lot of I'm talking about optimal overlap. All right. Yeah. I threw a lot in there.
Yeah. I like it though. I mean, I like learning about this. The high intensity training has been something, again, since I met you a few months ago, it's been the number one thing on my mind and the number one change in my workout. I mean, that's really been it. So I'm going to ask you a question. Doing this high intensity training, how often do you have to work out?
So you want to choose, like I said, you want to choose a volume and frequency that you, the individual, can recover from and adapt to. This is a spectrum. Most people can tolerate 2 to 3 workouts a week, or a workout with 2, maybe 3 days of complete rest in between. By rest, I mean you can do, recreational things, riding a bike, walking, playing sports, whatever, but you do not want to lift weights, because essentially what we're doing is we're stressing and damaging your muscle tissue. It's the same as if like you took a piece of sandpaper, rubbed it on your hand until it got really red and sore, and then you allow the next couple of days for that skin to heal and become thicker in the form of a callus, right? Now, what if the next day you took that same piece of sandpaper, rubbed it again? You prevented it from healing and becoming the callus. So if you're doing this type of training every single day, you're interfering with the recovery and adaptation process because we're generating a deep level of fatigue. Most people, 2 to 3 times a week is fine. I personally train once every 5 to 7 days because I kick the shit out of myself. So again, you're going to have to kind of track and see how you do. If you train and then 2 days goes by and you go to do a workout and you've got nothing in the tank, that's an indication you need another rest day. And same goes for volume too. If you go through 6 or 7 exercises and you got 2 more to go and you feel like you don't have the ability to do them, then you got to lower your volume. We got to get this Rocky Balboa syndrome out of our head to keep driving yourself into the friggin' ground thinking that that is going to make you better than the guy next to you or the guy behind you. It's not the fact. You got to go about it. You got to go about it smarter. You need to adjust the frequency and volume.
That's just part of that mainstream bullshit. Complexity is sexy, you know. Complexity sells, where simplicity is going to be the most efficient. People, I wish I learned this stuff sooner, like I said, but people overcomplicate fitness and nutrition.
Way overcomplicated because
way overcomplicated.
You got YouTube, you got Instagram, you got all these things. They need content, right? So I imagine they're sitting at a table just thinking up bullshit. Hey, let's do arm curls standing on one leg today and put it in there and tell them it's a great arm workout. Dude, they're coming out with bullshit just so they can expose you to their ads. Like a fitness magazine or Instagram, even Facebook, YouTube, whatever. They're trying to sell you something and they need content to get your foot in the door so that way they can throw this supplement at you. That's why you see these people, especially Instagram makes me want to pull my fucking hair out because you see these guys doing these stupid exercises that are it's about as efficient as mopping the floor with a toothbrush when you got a fucking mop sitting in the corner. But they're over here mopping the floor with a toothbrush and telling you this is a better way to do it. No. You got the mop sitting there. So Instagram and all the mainstream media, they specialize in giving you the most inefficient, ineffective, and most of the times dangerous ways to just stimulate your muscle. Yeah. And of course, that's what people are looking at.
Yeah.
Frustrating, but hey, sucks for them. If they're going to waste their whole life getting shitty gains, spending 2 hours a day in the gym, okay. I'll just I'll develop the best physique my genetics will allow and become a millionaire in the process. Have fun wasting your time. I don't care.
Yeah.
I would like to change the way people exercise, but again, people are very conditioned and indoctrinated. So it's a long shot, but hey, I'm here with the information. If they want to follow it, great. If not, have fun wasting your time.
Right.
Okay, let's say somebody watching this wants to get on the Jay Vincent program. How can they do that?
Well, I do have a course. I have a course which in the interview for 21 Studios where I was interviewed by George Bruno. I have the link to the course down there. Also in my Instagram handle is J__Vincent. That's 2 underscores. I have a link in the bio for my course. Now with this course, I'm going to go through the physiology and the science more in depth than we did on this interview with infographics and all this kind of stuff and really explain the science behind this. And then I'm going to show you a workout routine and demonstrate the workout routine for you so you can apply it to yourself. So that's all in my course. If you want to do the workout the way I do it, take my course. It's going to be in my Instagram bio. Or if you go to www.hituni.com, HITUNI, like university.com, you take Jay Vincent's Ultimate Physique. That's going to go really into the nitty-gritty about this kind of stuff.
Okay. And what I'll do is you can send me that information and I'll put a link to that in the description. Because right now I have the description for your YouTube channel in here. Mm-hmm. But if you send me that link, I'll make sure that everybody has it in the description of this video.
Sounds good.
They can get in touch with you and do the Jay Vincent workout. High intensity training.
Everybody should do it.
Good. Well, Jay, I'm going to wrap it up. I really appreciate your time. man, that was a lot of info. And I
That's
learned,
just scratching the surface, man. There's a lot left.
I learned a lot. I don't know about you, man, and you, Gonzo, but I learned quite a bit from this, you know. So
Yep, and I'm going to work on providing more content in the future for Instagram and YouTube because there's a lot to talk about. I'm still getting my feet wet in Instagram and YouTube and creating content, but there's going to be a lot more in there in the future to give people a lot of information to use.
You got to out content the bullshitters out there because they putting up shit more content.
I know. Well, what I like to do, I like to take the approach of just calling all of them stupid. So I go at it at a very aggressive approach. Like they're fucking wrong and they're really stupid, and here's why. So a lot of my Instagram videos are, here's something that's really fucking dumb. Here's why it's dumb, and do it this way. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on, because you can debunk and ridicule fitness bullshit for years on Instagram. So I'm going to do a little bit more of that.
okay, good. Well, we're looking forward to it. I can tell you that.
All right.
But Jay, again, I thank you for coming on. And again, we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I'm going to actually watch this again tomorrow just so I can kind of get a better feel of when you were talking about the different muscle groups and a couple of the other things that, you know, is a little more technical probably than the average guy is used to. But I think maybe the average guy won't be so average if he learns the stuff that you're teaching.
That's exactly it. Anybody who watches this and understands it now knows more about exercise than anybody they know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you, man. And Gonzo, thanks for coming on also. Jay Vincent, thank you very much. And we got to do this again for sure.
I'd love to. There's a lot more information to cover.
Sounds good. Fantastic. All right, you guys, you have a good night. And everybody, go ahead and share this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to Jay's channel, subscribe to Gonzo's channel, subscribe to all of our channels. So they're all down in the description of this video below. So, all right, guys, have a good night. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.